magical moment in my life. So we were playing at the Hollywood Bowl, opening for Paul McCartney, and I had never seen Paul McCartney play live. So that was amazing in itself. But at the end of the night, Don Henley's production manager came around and said, Paul wants you backstage. And so he rounded up all the guys from Don Henley's band. We went backstage, and then Paul McCartney's production manager briefed us and said, at the end of the night, after Paul's done with his set, he's going to want you to sing the encore with him, which happened to be Hey Jude. And he said, we're going to line the front of the stage with microphones. You're going to go up on stage, pick a spot, and then get ready to sing Hey Jude. So that was amazing enough. So I got up on stage, and because I didn't want to be too greedy, I left one microphone between Paul and me. And that turned out to be good karma later, because he said, right before he started his encore of Hey Jude, he said, I'm going to invite a couple of my old friends up, George Harrison and Ringo Starr. So they came up on stage. George took the spot between Paul and me, and Ringo was on the other side. And so he started singing. We sang Hey Jude together. It was like a moment of white light, the closest thing to a religious experience for me. So Paul took his left-handed guitar and put it on the stand, and then he made his way toward the piano because he was going to finish up the song at the piano. On the way there, we locked eyes, and I looked at him and smiled, and I said, Paul, this is it, isn't it? And he said, yeah. And I put out my hands, and he took them and he shook them like this. And he goes, yes, it is, like this. And then he went to the piano and finished up the song. So that was a truly magical moment for me, a moment of white light, something out of a dream, something I would have never imagined doing. So that's my story with Paul McCartney and George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Thanks for watching my video. Subscribe to my channel if you like, and give me a thumbs up if you like the video. The links to my other social media are listed below, and send me any comments if you have any ideas.
All righty. The world and elsewhere. Welcome to Creative Exchange. Here we have the amazingly magical Frank Symes visiting us, and it's Felipe Torres. Hello, everyone. We're going to have a great time tonight. It's Thursday, so that means it's almost gig night weekend, you know? You know, when you're on the road and it feels like you're gigging every day. I always look forward to those weekends because, you know, that's the audience is probably, that's their night to go for it. Yeah. So, and hopefully you get those big cities, you know, so we're almost there. It's Thursday night. So thank you, Frank, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks
awesome,
for having me.
All right, brother. Nice. We were talking a little bit before, and I was hoping to kind of get a couple of maybe some stories, or I'm just really curious on your perspective on, as I understand it, you played in Roger Daltrey's band, and I presume you were playing lead guitar or second. I mean, were there more than one guitar player?
I was pretty much playing Pete's role in Roger's band. So
cool.
I was playing everything Pete would play, and then we also played Roger's solo songs. We arranged them, and then later we played Tommy. And I came up with this idea to present Tommy in a different way, which is to present it like unlike the way the Who presented it. They never tried to replicate the record. I had an idea to replicate the record with all the right sounds, with all the right vocals, because, you know, with the Who, there were only 3 vocalists.
Right.
On the record, like on Tommy, there's up to maybe six vocal parts in one song.
Right.
And
sure.
So we were able to cover five parts. Maybe there were only 5 parts. With Quadrophenia, there's more. Maybe with the hits, there were more. I mean, there were 9 vocals on one of the songs, but and then we played songs like I Can See for Miles, which does have 5 vocals. We were able to cover that with all the vocalists in Roger Daltrey's band. And so that made it sound unusual. The Who had never sounded like that. You know, they recorded their songs with 5 vocals, but they can only reproduce 3 of them on stage. So that made it sound different. That alone made it sound different. And then when we played Tommy, we pretty much not only resurrected all the background vocals, but we played the horn parts. If there were any, you know, all the horn parts were sampled and we played them. The Who never did stuff like that. They did what Pete would call a rock and roll version. A rock and roll circus version of it. But I wanted to reproduce the record, so I deconstructed the whole album. I wrote it all out. You know, there weren't that many horn parts, but a lot of vocal parts, and I wrote it all out. And if there was any question about the parts, I showed everyone. It turns out that Pete took notice of that. You know, like, wow, that's amazing. That, you know, I'm not saying he thought it was amazing, but I've just thought he took notice of it. And
yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah,
he appreciated my work, I believe, and because, you know, next thing I knew, I was helping him with a sequence for the Olympics, and then after that, he wrote me and said, "I'd like you to work on Quadrophenia."
So you were working with Roger at the time that Pete and you kind of got together?
That's right. The first time I met Pete, I was rehearsing at a studio in England, about an hour north of London, maybe an hour and a half. But we were rehearsing at a soundstage, and then Pete threatened to come a couple times and he didn't show up, so we were really disappointed.
Oh man, yeah, I'm sure that.
He goes, "Oh, he's really coming today," you know. So he comes with, you know, in his Maybach, you know, really beautiful car, you know, handmade car, with his driver, and he's wearing a suit, and he's got a kerchief, you know, a red silk kerchief, you know, he looked really classy, you know. And he went and talked to everybody, you know. He of course gave Roger a hug, and then he talked to everyone briefly. You know, shook their hands, was very cordial. He left me for last, and then he came over to me, and we stopped rehearsal, and Pete and I had a conversation for about an hour.
Wow, cool.
And
that's crazy. Great, man.
We were joking, and he was telling most of the stories, but I told him some stories too, and
cool.
We seemed to get along with each other.
That's great. That's so cool.
But much later, he was concerned that I was organizing too much, like I had gone overboard with organizing. He said, "I don't want to sound like a CD." And he mentioned one of the I had been involved in that sounds all too perfect on stage. I don't want to name names, but he didn't want to sound like them. He didn't want to sound like a CD. And I said, "Don't worry." I told Pete, I said, "Look, I know the music of the Who like it's my own." I said, "It's about freedom. It's about fire. It's about explosive, spontaneous energy. And I'm not gonna quash that. There's no way I'm gonna use that." I said, "I have no intention of it." I said, "We're gonna leave room for all that whenever you want." You know. So I said, "But all the other parts, like background vocals and horn parts and string parts and keyboard parts and all that, I want them to be really exacting, you know, really precise." And so those parts were really precise. And then there was, of course, the fire of Pete Townsend and Daltrey. And so the two major forces of the Who, and which I call, you know, which I think of as the most, you know, explosive energy, plus what the Who's music and lyrics represent, to me is true rock and roll, because it's rebellious. It's anti-establishment. And that aspect of it, of the Who, really sets them apart from pretty much all the other bands.
They were very ahead of their time.
They're in a sense, they share this, like, a similar ideology with the Sex Pistols, or
I could see that,
and a lot of punk bands out of LA or something, you know. It's about you know, questioning the status quo, questioning establishment, and it's about telling stories too.
Right, that's great.
Raging against the establishment, just it directly. It's about telling stories and indirectly infusing some ideology and philosophy behind it, what they're saying.
So you found that magical balance between tributing the arranged, or let's say composed, portions of the records,
right,
and then keeping the improvisational elements of the language. That's amazing, because that's something I think is one of the parts that people, I think, sometimes miss when they're learning the music of a band. It's not necessarily about doing it note for note how they did it, because there's a good chance a band like the Who, I think it was a lot of spontaneous energy. They probably didn't play it exactly the same each time. They wanted to express and move around and react.
That's right.
So that's really cool, man. That's really hip, because as a band.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
As a band, they had a sound, but as a recorded band, they also had such like timeless music. So it must have been just such an amazing thing to get to work with them. But also, I'm happy to hear that you were doing the best of both worlds, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I played, Young Man Blues, which isn't a Pete song, but it's a cover song, but they really made it into what it is, and it might as well be an original song. And I have a feeling Pete made up some of the stuff that he played on Live at Leeds. It's just unbelievable, spontaneous energy. I think Jimmy Page had that kind of attitude as well. When it was time to improvise, you just make stuff up at that moment. And and you got to witness someone creating something on the spot. It wasn't, and if you heard their live album, well, especially with the Who, they never corrected a thing. They never went back and go, oh, that's a little off. Let's go back in the studio and Pro Tool that, or just corrected, and most bands do. They're embarrassed about little mistakes. The Who don't give a damn about mistakes. They were
fearless.
They're fearless. They're just like, it's a mistake. Great. It's like that artist, Duchamp. The artist Duchamp. Yeah, he's a French Dada artist. Turn of the century. He had a beautiful artwork that was broken while in transport, and he said, well, that's what it. That's part of the art now. And he in some ways, Pete has a kind of a Dadaist, and so does Roger. They say, if you make a mistake, we're going to laugh about it, but we're going to leave it on the recording.
Right. That's fearless, man. That's great.
I know, it's great. You don't see that anymore, too much anymore. People are so afraid, As a matter of fact, a lot of music is fear driven now, It's like,
right.
Yeah, I think so, because we're a little off there. Got to correct it. It's about the fear of exposing your little failings. But who cares? You don't have to be. No one's precise. Not really.
No.
And so why not just leave it? And that really sets the Who apart. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something so magical listening to the Who, which maybe it's not the way that a lot of people think of it, but I always think of it as a band of vocalists who played very well on their instruments. But it's like each of them, including Keith, he's one of my favorite drummers, who could play off the vocals.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he understood the theme of the lyric, he understood the flow of the air and the breath, and then there's this extra element where his improvisation or the way that he would move around the groove, he wasn't just setting a tempo. He was expressing and painting with different colors, and I could see he was just reflecting something or responding to the vocals even.
That's right.
And that's a magical thing.
The thing about, I think Keith is misunderstood. They think, oh, he couldn't keep a beat. Well, he could if he wanted to. He had to play to a click, more or less.
To a click.
Don't Get Fooled Again and Bob O'Reilly and Who's Next and a bunch of other songs where he had to play to a click. He could play to a click. But when there was no click, he played orchestrally. And that means with retards, with accelerando, and he would slow down and speed up. And that added excitement to the music, And So it's really sort of anti-Pro Tools gridlock type rock. And
yeah, that's all right.
There's a beauty to that. That's another way that sets them apart. So the other aspect of Keith Moon's drumming is that he didn't play with the rhythms of the guitar or with the rhythms of the melody. He played complementarily, and so he played off. He played off as one does when you orchestrate. You know, you don't. If there's a melody line, the others should complement it, but not play in rhythm with it. I mean, sometimes it's good to do that, but then there are times when you play that where there's a counterpoint, rhythmic counterpoint, of course, harmonic counterpoint. But so there's a lot of counterpoint type playing in Keith's playing, which is different from most drummers.
Absolutely, I think he pulled maybe from the influence of jazz, or from other styles that were more improvisational. They didn't have to quantize or landmark the downbeat constantly. It was like more of a flowing dialogue. And so a question I have for you, as I feel you're not only in the band or have been in positions of playing with the band, but you've been given the title of musical director. Do you find yourself, let's say you had to start a new tour, or you guys were asked to do maybe a couple of old cuts you never played with that lineup before. How do you usually approach getting the backup performers to, you know, come up with how they're going to play the songs live?
Well, you know, with Zach, he's going to play what he's going to play, and he's usually spot on. And it's different from Keith, but he plays more on rather than off. You know. Just fine. It's a different expression. It's a different way to play drums. He's a powerhouse, and he's incredibly aesthetically astute. He knows when to back off and when to add subtleties and all that.
He can swing too.
Oh, he can swing. Oh, he can swing. He can put the lilt into the rhythm. He can do all that. You know, he really has his father's genes in terms of putting the lilt into it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I look at the essential. It depends on the song. If it's a song that requires a track, I usually redid the tracks because I wanted them to be more precise, and often I would redo the tracks and make sure that everything. Well, I mean, not always, but I did. I mean, there's a flaw in Bob O'Reilly, in the track of Bob O'Reilly, because it's analog, it's 600, and there's a voltaic variance. I mean, it changes. There was a voltage change, and it slowed down a little bit in the beginning, in the intro. I thought that's charming that it does that. I didn't want to straighten that out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I told Pete about that. I go, oh, really? I mean, I don't think he was aware of it. I said, well, this is like a dip, and it comes back up. I said, we got to leave that, because, you know, that's the way you've played it, and I don't want to change that.
Yeah, that's cool.
What do I do? I take about, you know, I just want to make sure everyone's singing the right parts. If there's a lot of harmony, whatever the essential, vital parts of a song are, I address them, you know. And I did that with all of it, you know, about 100 songs for the Who.
Right. Wow.
It depended on, you know, Quadrophenia has a lot of horns. I wrote you know, the horns were initially mostly synthesizer, and so they had to be translated to actual horn parts. So I hired two master level. They had master degrees. They were from USC, these horn guys. And I called USC and found these guys, and
cool.
And then they played trumpet, and they played all the horns, French horn,
cool,
and piccolo trumpet, trombone.
Wow.
Also,
I wouldn't even know that was all on those. That's great.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, no, not on the album. They had this was a translation.
Translation. Yeah, I see.
Right. So I translated it, and I made five part, pretty much all of Quadrophenia that have horn. There were about, I don't know, something like 13 songs with horns or something, and I arranged the horns, and there were trumpet 1, 2, 3, saxophone. I mean, not saxophone. Pete would be horrified if I said saxophone. Anyway, trombone.
Not a saxophone fan.
And not the tuba, but what is that instrument called? I can't remember.
Sousaphone? The big one?
No, that's the huge one. But there's
that's a huge.
What is that? I gotta dig it up. Anyway, I'm a little embarrassed not to remember, but I wrote the parts and.
Cool. Yeah.
The horn.
So did you tour with a horn section?
Sorry.
Did you guys tour with the live horn section?
Well, 2 horn players that played all the horns.
Oh, they played it live too. Okay.
Once the other 3 parts that were missing, I would play them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
I made horn samples off of them from the players, and sometimes from the record, and I would have them ready, and I played all the rest of the horn parts.
Oh wow! So when you were playing, I guess with the Who proper, it was more like you were covering a lot of musical bases, not just the guitar.
Three of the horn parts, and then I would play banjo on Squeeze Box if we played that, and on one other song, and mandolin on The Seeker. So,
right.
Yeah.
And what bass player have you played with the most, I guess?
Well, Pino Palladino was the first guy, and then he went on the road with John Mayer. So Roger's bass player got to play with the Who.
Oh, okay. Have you ever played with Mark Clark?
No, I haven't.
No, he was a player I played with in a band long ago, and I think he'd work with Roger when he did something with an orchestra.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's from Uriah Heep. I think he played with him as well. He's an English guy.
I used to listen to Uriah Heep.
Yeah, yeah. Mark was the player.
On the
oh, really? Oh, cool.
Rock Legends tour. I saw Uriah Heep, and I hadn't seen them in decades.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. I figured you must be, just meetings. You must cross paths with so many great players. And Pino's awesome. I love Pino's playing.
Yeah, Pino's awesome. Completely different from John Entwistle, but
sure. Yeah. There's no one like him.
No, not really.
No, he had such an interesting style. So, with some of the other acts or bands or groups you've worked with, is it usually similar that you have to find kind of strike a balance between making it sound true to the record, but not like a record player?
Right. You want to add the spontaneous fire whenever you're playing. But like when I played with Don Henley, he would want me to play exactly what was played on the record. But you have to breathe fire into. You have to put your life energy into playing. I mean, I think when you audition for someone, I think an artist is looking for that ability to give the same part that everyone's going to play at the audition new life, new energy. And you have to, it's a very subtle and unquantifiable element in music when someone has a certain energy or fire or a sense of spontaneity, even if they're playing the same notes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you take, someone playing Bach, on the piano, well-tempered clavier or something, and Glenn Gould will play it, and Ashkenazi will play it. There's different players. Margaret Argerich will play it, and they all play it differently.
Mm-hmm.
They breathe life, their own character and life into what they're playing, and that's what I do with Don Henley. I mean, I put my heart and soul into every moment on stage with him, and he knew that, he knew I was a fiery, if I may say so.
That's awesome. No, that's really exciting to hear.
Like no matter what. So
if you had like I guess a couple of tips for younger players or people trying to break into the music business as I guess you could say side musicians,
Yes.
but with the desire of playing this iconic music that with the source material coming from the real person, what would be a couple of tips you'd say to someone who wanted to break into that, or how would they approach that music?
Well, you have to practice your ass off no matter what. I mean, that's a given. You got to be good technically, but you can't go off on the technical highway and never come back either. You have what I mean by that. I don't know why I said that. It was funny image, but I see players, you know, certain, and they're shredders. They're just, I mean, I'm not a shredder. You know, I can play pretty fast, but I'm not a shredder. You know, I mean, I can play maybe like John McLaughlin, but I can't play like some of those other guys. You know, Malmsteen, all those guys. You know, like crazy, you know, technicians.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say crazy. They're unbelievable. You know, they're unbelievable with their facility and their accuracy. Yeah, that's great. But what you have to have when you play, it doesn't matter if you're playing with an artist or whether you're playing in your own band, you get your own record deal. The main thing is the ability to relax into it. Yeah, I mean, you got to have fire, you got to have energy, but you got to be relaxed, like kind of like you have a good sense of humor. If you can't relax, you can't tell a joke. If you know, you got to watch a comedian. He's relaxed. That's why he can tell a joke and have good timing. You know? Yeah. If you don't have that kind of ability to smile into the music, smile, breathe normal. I see guys that look like they're like a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
Because they're so afraid to make a mistake. And they're looking at their neck, and you could just see their. I go, man, are you happy playing music? You know,
right? Yeah, yeah. The joy has to be there.
Is to make that connection with the joy of playing, and have a sense of humor. Don't be so hard on yourself if you make a mistake. Just laugh it away, and you know, work on your material. Like, you know, do it with blood. You know, do it. You know, make it count, but you gotta like relax too. It's a dichotomy. I know. It's like you're playing for blood, but you gotta relax at the same time. You gotta have a little bit of both. If you're too technically minded and you're too hard on yourself, you're gonna be playing out of fear. Nobody wants to see that. You know, nobody wants to resonate with someone who's playing from a standpoint of fear. So you got to get over that. You got to get over the stage fright and be able to relax. I think when I auditioned for Mick Jagger, I just had a connection with him anyway. But still, it's Mick Jagger, this legend and everything. But I was able to smile, and we were able to joke with each other right away. And I moved around. You know, I'm a very physical player. You know, in two ways. I'll tell you. It's a lesson I learned from Pete Townsend and Jimmy Page, more so than any other guys. They play very physically. Yeah. I mean, when they pound out their chords, you know, both of them. And they don't care about accuracy. They just care about the creative impulse. And, and sometimes they're not perfect. You know, some people think Jimmy Page is a little bit clunky, but you know.
Oh, but he's got such mojo.
Oh, that's what it's about. You know?
He's got mojo for days. It's the best.
I met Jimmy Page. He was at the Fox Theater in Oakland, and he was watching the band from the other side of the stage, and then he started taking notice of me. And so he comes over to my side and starts watching me play. And you know, made me like a tiny nervous, you know. But I do have that kind of sense of humor. Like, you know, I can look at Jimmy Page and I go, yeah, check that out.
Hey man, you're just the guy doing the gig. You got the gig. It's cool.
So I was just kind of playing my best, and then he right after the show he goes, man, you're a great guitarist, and he goes,
cool.
He goes, that one solo you did of you know, the song of Roger's solo song called Days of Light. He goes, that was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Man, Jimmy Page said that. So we got a really nice photo, and we're smiling with that kind of, you could see the little sparkle of humor in our eyes.
That's beautiful, man.
And amazing thing. Okay, here's my moment of touting. Okay, so
all right.
So Jimmy Page paid me that compliment. Well, Eric Clapton paid me the same compliment. So
that's cool.
Roger opened for Eric Clapton on a couple, over 2 years' time. We toured with Eric Clapton, and Eric actually invited me into his dressing room. Like, I didn't solicit him. I was just walking down the hall in the arena, and Eric Clapton goes, "Hey!" I went, "Oh, me?" He goes, "Yeah, come on in." He invited me into his dressing room. He goes, "Hey, I'm Eric." He goes, "Oh, I know who you are." And I go, "I'm Frank." And he goes, "Ah." He goes, So I go, "Oh, Eric, your amp sounds so good." He goes, "Oh, he wants to talk about all the technical things, about the amp, how it was hand wired. And it was this special edition. It only made 2 of these, and they're beautiful." And I go, "Oh, it sounded an unbelievable tone." It was,
right.
And then he went off. But at the end of the tour, everyone was trying to get into Roger Daltrey's room. There was all these girls and guys alike. They were rushing. It was like sardines in Roger's room. And Eric was trying to get into the room. And he was in the back, and he was waving. And I was in the room seeing Eric wave. And he goes, you. And he's, "Me?" And it goes, "Yeah, you." He goes, "You're a great guitar player." Like that.
Cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so
no, I got you are, I think that the amazing thing has been not only that you've played some probably timeless classic music, but it sounds like they were not at all intimidated by the situation that they had to play with someone new or someone different than their original band. It seems like in every situation you've made the artist feel comfortable and safe and trusted and at home. And that seems to be a real, I think, like a real talent and ability that most, I think, musicians don't know about. Like you're talking about technique, that's its own skill.
It is.
People feel let the defenses down and feel that they can maybe give you critiques or ask something of you. I've seen that myself in the bands I've played with, where if you didn't know that person off stage, it'd be hard to imagine, but that seems to be a really cool thing that you just seem to exude that naturally, and they must all, I guess, dig that. Do you find that there's ever been a time where you've had to maybe reschedule your, a tour to go with someone else? I mean, how do you navigate?
There was a nasty spot in several years ago when I was booked on Roger Daltrey's tour, and then Don Henley called, and I had to turn him down, and he was very upset.
Yeah.
It couldn't be helped. I couldn't get out of it. I mean, what am I supposed to tell Roger? Oh, my old artist.
You can't be in 2 places at once. Good problem to have. But yeah, man, now that is a drag.
It was a problem, yeah. It was a problem.
Wow. So do you usually call in your own subs in that situation, or depends on the situation?
Excuse me?
So do you tend to have to do you call in your own subs to take,
Well, I'm always there to offer suggestions. I think with Don Henley, when I couldn't play with him one tour, I suggested Pete Thorne.
Oh, okay, cool.
He played a few gigs with Don.
Right on. And so, yeah, because I was wondering if that also must reflect positively on your networking with people, that they know you're going to put someone in that can fill that position on the field.
Right. I've done that with Don Felder. He always, it's kind of musical chairs as far as the musicians go in Don Felder's band. I brought in his favorite drummer, Stevie Stanislaw, that played with David Gilmour and Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Right on.
He's played with other famous names, but I brought Stevie in, and Don Felder just adores his drumming. So
that's cool.
Stevie's unbelievable. So.
Wow, man, that's great. So would you say that you, I guess, in a fulfillment sort of way, it sounds like you've gotten to fulfill so many amazing situations as like you know, people's dream gigs. What is on your still to-do list? Do you have some like place you want to play, people you want to play with?
I'm not going to turn down any gigs with the Who, you know, or Roger Daltrey. I mean, because I love playing the Who's music. You know, the special attachment I have with the Who's, when I grew up in Japan, you know, I grew up as a military dependent, more or less, in Japan. So Woodstock came out a long, long time ago. Woodstock, the documentary. And
watched it like 100 times. Yeah.
So have I. And when I was 13, 14, I saw Woodstock, and I loved everything. You know, Santana, that drum solo in Soul Sacrifice.
Great stuff.
You know, Joe Cocker, you know.
Oh, I love,
unbelievable performances by everyone, you know.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then the Who come on, and they kind of steal the show because of the strength of their material.
Yeah.
And when they do See Me, Feel Me, it's like a magic moment. It's like they take you to another celestial sphere somewhere. And it's like another world. It's because of the vocals and because of the words and because of the unusual songwriting. And then they come on and do Summertime Blues. And, you know, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So powerful. And then he breaks his guitar like a, you know, performance art.
Right. Yeah.
I was just taken by everything about the Who, you know.
Yeah.
And Roger Daltrey in his fringe vest and microphone and all that stuff. The whole thing looked like performance art to me. I mean, I wouldn't call it. I didn't call it that when I was 14, but I was so taken by it. I was mesmerized. I was breathless. And I said, I didn't say, well, I want to play with them. I said, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So unbelievably, you know, many years later, I wound up playing with him, you know. And
that is awesome.
It's it is unreal. It's almost hallucinatory. Sometimes when we did See Me, Feel Me, and listening to you, there were moments when I was time tripping, and I felt like I was 14 again. And I remember that moment when I saw them at Woodstock, and there I am. It's as if I was 14 again, and I was like in a hallucinatory world, just dove into that film and became that part of the band. You know,
that's awesome.
Melded into the screen.
Whoa.
You know, something you might see in a dream, literally in a dream, like. You're watching it and you just meld into it like one of those Japanese horror movies or something.
Wow.
You know, like move into that screen and you become in the band. Oh my God, I'm in the Who now. You know,
I had that experience one time.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was very similar. I grew up watching the Monkees.
Oh,
you know?
the Monkees, yeah.
Yeah, and when I was 19, I was taking lessons in New York, and my teacher at the time was Davy Jones's drummer. Yeah. So through, you know, just a couple of chance meetings, I became his sub. And after a little while, I was Davy's drummer for 11 years. Wow. And all the while, I was always like, you know, I knew the other guys. I knew Pete, I knew Mickey. But I ended up doing Davy's last reunion tour with him. He ended up using his band. Right. And similarly, kind of what you mentioned earlier about, I guess, the material, the source material. There was a moment where, you know, Davey and I were sitting talking about the tour coming, and his show was always based around a lot of that material, but also his own versions. And he'd had a lot of different lineups, and he kind of liked to show off his band, you know. So he asked me, what do you think you guys should wear? And I said, well, honestly, since you guys are up front and it's going to be the three of you and you're doing this multimedia thing with all the old commercials, it sounds almost like we should be one of those backup orchestras you'd have on like Johnny Carson or something, or even orchestral. So I said, well, it would make sense if we were approaching the music as like a Beethoven or something. We would dress formally in formal wear because it's the music that's really speaking. And he dug that, you know, so we ended up wearing suits, and more interestingly was the band was comprised of his guys, plus they all brought in a guy. So we had a lot. We had a big band. It's the first time we got to have 2 guitars. So one guy played all the 12-string parts. The other guy played all the leads. It was really great. We did all the singing parts, and I did a lot of percussion with the drums, and I would double drum with Mickey. That's what I was getting at. So Mickey hadn't played drums in over 10 years, and he told me, he's really into singing and playing, and he needs a click. He really can sit on that click really well. And we'd gotten a couple of instances where we got together, and he talked to me about he put on this one record, and he's just a sweet guy. Anyway, there was one week that we did our full-on rehearsals at a soundstage, and there was a moment where we were about to go into doing the portion of the movie Head, all the musical material. And I'd seen this, like, I'd never watched it. I waited till the last minute before we left because I found it was nerve-wracking. It was like watching a relative in another time. So I just didn't know how to, but I figured, let me check it out. I check out the thing. And so here we are, we're playing. And for a minute, he says, hey, everybody's going out to lunch. Do you mind just sitting and working with me on a couple of these parts? I said, no, not at all. So we're sitting on 2 drum sets next to each other. We're playing this music. And to, I guess, save on energy or something, they turn off all the lights, including the stage lights and everything. And the only light in this massive hangar was my music stand light that was between the 2 of us. And we're playing, and he's just singing over the drums. And I looked at him and I thought, I'm inside Head. I'm in the movie. This is unbelievable. I was so fortunate to get to do that. And the way you described it, I appreciate what you mean, man. That is a true dream come true.
You got inside the movie for the moment. It's almost like traveling into another dimension.
Yeah,
and really so being there.
And I think all the things you said about being prepared and knowing them, practicing, that stuff all means that's how you get there, right? Yeah. You don't rest on that stuff. That's so you must still play every day, all the time.
I mostly do composing. I just write.
Oh wow, cool.
And so I that's all I do now. I don't like practice scales and things.
Yeah.
I did take some. Yeah, I learned some really helpful things from Robert Fripp and.
Wow. Cool.
Couple there. Ted Green he was an unbelievable guitar player that was so versatile, and he died young. But I loved him, and he told me, "You don't need lessons from me. You're fine." Oh no, Ted, you always teach me something new. No. I don't want to teach you anymore. You're fine. You do. Yeah. He loved my classical guitar playing, and because I like composing. To me, composing is the height of creativity.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's great. So could you tell me a bit about the big string theory?
The big strum theory.
Strum theory. I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't read my own handwriting. The big strum theory.
Kind of. There's a.
Is it a play on the words of string theory?
And there's the big strum theory. The big strum theory is my perspective on why music is so important, and I consider it a superior form of art. And with apologies to all other artists, because I do fine arts too. I can draw and paint. I've done sculpting. I've done a lot of different kinds of art. I write books. That's a form of art as well. But I think music is because elements of music are contained in every aspect of nature. Everything in the universe is oscillating and producing a pitch. And that's happening at every scale, from the largest astrophysical scale all the way down to the scale that we can't even view. The theory is that it's all about strings vibrating, and every atom is producing a pitch. Plants, they realize now, they've discovered, communicate with electrochemical impulse. And one plant will say, I need some phosphorus over here. Well, I need some carbon. Well, let's have an exchange, and they can exchange. Or mother trees will look after their sapling, and if they're in danger, they know this, and they do it through the network of mycelium underground. It's the fibrous stuff that comes at the bottom of mushrooms, and these are like millions of miles of mycelium underground, and they're 10 times more mushrooms than plants, and they're how many? 3 trillion? No, yeah, 3 trillion trees, and there are 10 times more mushrooms. So, and they're all communicating. There's communication going on, and it used to be thought of as pseudoscience, but now it's not. And all that communication is going on through waveforms, and waveforms are at the heart of the creative interaction in the universe. So, in a nutshell, my philosophy on the universe is that it is inherently creative. Therefore, for you to partake in the creativity is to partake in the natural order of the universe. Because and it's all the interaction that's happening in the universe between atoms, molecules, and cells, and all the way up the scale.
Yeah,
larger bodies, human bodies. The whole interaction and structure of everything in nature is based in the interaction of waveforms.
The Big Strum Theory. I hear it, man.
Every waveform is producing a tone or pitch.
I so believe everything you mean, because I've thought that and felt that so long, and that the way you're explaining it makes so much sense. I also remember that when I first realized music had to be done with more than one person, it's almost like a moving art.
Oh yeah.
It like a movie is kind of moving in a way, or painting is singular, but music it seems like it's already happening.
Yeah.
So when we connect to it and then create from it or respond to it, it's like an art that only happens in that one moment, and then it becomes some new art every time.
Yeah, and we as musicians we know the. Are we done?
Oh no, that was just my timer to let the dog out later tonight. Sorry about that.
No, we know the sense of eternal, sense of the eternal, and what I mean by that is time. There are aspects of time that is an illusion. Some physicists say that the passage of time is an illusion. That all we have is the crest of the moment. Well, there's nothing like music to put you right at the crest of the moment, so it feels like the eternal. And so that's one thing about time. I mean, I elaborate on all this in my book, but and then there's the cosmic microwave background. I mean, there are so many things in the book, like neurotheology. Why, we have a need for some supreme being or God, or there's something in the limbic system that makes you want to have a belief in God.
Yeah.
I understand it, but now believers in God, they do prayer, and in moments of deep prayer, when they feel a union with God, there are many similarities to what's happening neurologically to a person who is meditating and also playing music. So there's an overlap of neural activity between meditators, people who do prayer, like nuns, and musicians. And there's a lot of overlap going on. I mean, and music activates more parts of the brain than pretty much any other activity. And it helps people with schizophrenia, depression. I've helped myself. I mean, when I write in my book, I'm not talking abstractly or like academically. I help myself out of insomnia, anxiety disorder, and depression through music. I mean, when I'm in my room and I can't sleep, in a hotel room on the road, I pick up my little baby Taylor and I play some Bach. and my guitar falls away and I fall asleep. They know Bach's music is more relaxing. I mean, they've done studies on Bach's music. It's more relaxing than anything. Even spiders in the presence of Bach's music calm down.
Brahms does it for me, but yeah, Bach's up there too. I put Brahms on, I'm out.
Well, I love Brahms. They're all great. I was Beethoven the other way. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, he's my favorite.
Mozart is amazing. Everybody's amazing. Schumann is amazing. Everyone, all those, the people who have names, they're all amazing. Ravel, Stravinsky, everyone. So I love them all, but to me, Bach is king. So
awesome. That's really cool. So thank you so far, everyone who's gotten to check us out. Thank you for coming on. Frank, we were hoping to invite a mystery guest. No, there's no mystery. We have a friend. I was saying we have a common friend. He's a drummer and so much more. He's a lefty, which is a very fascinating thing to watch. Everything is so interesting, his approach. And Michael Leisure, who I'm talking about, Michael and I met. He's the one who kind of connected me to Creative Exchange. And Michael and I met actually, wow, I want to say almost 8 years ago now. I was on tour with a blues band, with the Papa Chubby band, and he was out with Walter Trout, his very long time gig. And the funny thing is we kept playing opposite nights of each other, headline touring like overseas, where we do Friday and they do Saturday. So there was very little like overlap gigging at first, but I knew about them. And being American, there was it was kind of like a kinship. I'd be somewhere in Europe, and if I heard somebody with like a New York accent in an elevator, we'd be friends. Like the elevator door opened, but there was something, of course, a kinship with the drummer. And he and I believe we met one morning in, he actually did get to we were in the same hotel. And in the morning there was this big breakfast. They had these big breakfasts in Germany, and amazing. And I was standing in the line, and he came over to me and he says, "Hey, I'm Michael. I'm from Walter's band. We saw you guys play last night." I said, "Oh, you guys really? You're playing tonight?" He goes, "Yeah, we got in a little early. We got to catch your set. We sat and we ate. We probably sat there for like an hour and just hit it off." And the nice thing with Michael is he's so humble and he's so sweet natured and so musical. But like you're talking about before, man, the fire that he gets when he plays, it's incredible. And every time I'd catch him come early, and maybe we were playing before them and he'd see us playing, I would elevate because I knew he was there. Not because I was concerned he wouldn't be digging it. I just like, oh, Michael's here. I got to give it a little more for Michael, because we'd get these spots in our sets to just kind of do something solo or something. And he's just always been an inspiration to me that way. It's like every time he sits, he's not just playing drums, he's playing music. Every note is musical. And, it's just a great, great guy. So I'm glad that you know him. He's awesome.
I've known him for so long, it's what he to me, he exudes joy. Music makes him so happy, and that energy resonates with the audience.
Right on.
And it's hard to really define or quantify. I don't know, you can't put numbers on it. It's beyond that, and it's pure joy. It's
right
on. So there's a word, qualia, which is a really interesting word. It just means your subjective experience of, like, say, the color red, or how a chord sounds to you. D minor, the saddest of all chords.
Right.
But it sounds sad, and you put a ninth in there. Oh, it even sounds sadder. But why does it sound sad? It sounds sad to you, but you can't really empirically prove that it's a sad chord. So when somebody is experiencing joy, you see it, but they are the ones experiencing it, and it's the quality of joy. It's the subjective experience of joy, subjective experience. But I think as musicians, it's the closest thing. Excuse me. Boy, do I need some water.
I was going to offer you mine. I feel like we're there together.
Actually, I had some iced tea back here.
All right, cheers.
But anyway, I was just going to say it's the closest thing to knowing, to having the knowledge that you experience the same joy. There's nothing like music to connect you, to feel, to share that qualia of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I call that epiqualia, which when two people know they're feeling the same thing.
That's amazing.
That happens.
Well, let's see if Michael feels the same. Shall we add him to our backstage hang? I think Sass is ready with him, and I think he'll be chiming Michael in. Man, that's amazing. Hey, there he is.
Hi, Michael.
My friends.
What's
so
up,
good to
brother?
see you both. I just want to say I love you guys dearly. I'm so honored to have you guys say those things about me, and we just do what we do, and it comes out of us, and it affects people, and then they feel that joy, and it comes back to us, and it's like this big reciprocal energy, like Frank was talking about. I've known Frank for 30 years. I've known Felipe for better part of 5 or 6 years, and we've become super close. And everything that Frank is saying is absolutely true. And I love talking philosophy and energy and all those things with Frank. And I just want to, I almost feel like I'm ruining the interview because I've been having such a blast just listening to you guys talk. And there's some things that I've learned about Frank that I didn't even know, which is great. And I knew you guys were going to have a great conversation and hit it off. And I'm grateful to be on here and join you guys. And I just got done going on like a 20-mile bike ride here at the beach. And I'm like full of endorphins and energy. I'm sunburnt, but I feel great. And watching you guys is just like the icing on the cake.
That's cool, man. Yeah, Michael, the last time we saw each other was we actually had lunch at a diner kind of nearby. He was in town with Walter.
Yeah, we're on the road.
Yeah, and one thing that was really interesting was that you were telling me about how Walter had been getting back into playing after, you know, a kind of a long hiatus. And he, of all people, I believe he was like a little nervous to get back into it. But you just kind of motivated him, and you guys jammed, and then now, I mean, he's ripping, man. You know, music.
He's better than ever. His health and his outlook on things. He's actually doing vocals and guitar for the new record that we just tracked. We did the rhythm tracks, and Johnny Gruparik, who is our regular bass player, couldn't make it due to some issues he was dealing with. He had to stay in Europe. One of Frank's and my dear friends of many years, Jamie Hunting, who's an incredible musician, stepped in and played the bass. And Frank and I have been playing with Jamie for, 30 years, or Frank's known him even longer. So there's a lot of, circular stuff that comes back around, and it really is like 6 degrees or less of separation between one person and another.
That's cool. What's the last time you guys got to play together? Have you played together in a while?
We played up in Napa for a private event.
Yeah.
Oh,
we did
Napa.
2 shows.
Yeah, we played.
We just played one like a few days ago, and then about a week and a half before that, we did 2 private events in Napa, and then we've got a couple things coming up in Laguna, where we have a group that we play with together called Top Cat, and it's awesome. Any chance we get to play, it's amazing because we just close our eyes and just go, and it's like that thing that you guys were talking about with improvising, playing Zeppelin, stuff like that. We have the parts, but then there's the part where you just go, and it's so natural. We don't even have to think about it. We communicate almost telepathically. And there's very few people that I can do that with. Frank is one of them.
I think Mike and I we do have telepathy. Because we just like look at each other and we go, bam, okay, we know what to do.
That's cool. So was it original music you guys were playing?
Well, we have, we can, yeah. There are a couple of songs that I've written, and but you know, I've got my hands in all sorts of pies.
I love Frank's writing. I love his original music, and I played on some of it. And whenever we get a chance to do it, it's so fun because it's so fresh and different from anything else that I play with other people. And hopefully in the future there'll be more music. Frank just played me a few of his compositions that he's done with other artists, and it's just amazing. It's got so many different musical elements. That I'm not a composer. I don't play piano. I don't play guitar. Felipe plays guitar and bass and drums, and I wish I could do all that because it's a way of expressing the things that are in your mind and in your heart. And Frank sat down with me the other night and said, you know what, Mike, you need to do that because you have a lot of creative ideas and things to say. So he's inspired me to start doing what Felipe has been doing for the last couple of years, which is teaching yourself other instruments, which is awesome. So you guys are both very inspiring to me.
Thanks, man.
I would urge you to really do it. You know, learn a harmonic instrument. Learn guitar is harder than keyboards. I mean, wonderful thing about keyboards is all the notes are in front of you.
Right in front of you. Yeah, it's a very good grid.
Up to 10 notes. You know.
Yeah. And I would say maybe get into the bass. If I didn't play drums, I'd play bass, man. Bass is the glue. It's like one note and they change the whole chord, you know? And you got the rhythm already. So, you know, it's a fun thing. Just get a bass guitar and go for it.
Yeah. When you
absolutely
a brilliant bass player like Jamie Hunting, it's magical. You know, he's mesmerizing.
Yeah, yeah. And my favorite bass players, it's not even what the note is, it's the length of the note, the rhythm that can really sink in the pocket with the drummer. And then the rhythms, the section is solid, then anything else can happen on top.
Right. It's all these subtleties that you can't even put down on paper. You know, you can't
the space between the notes, right?
It's like, you know, make this brilliant. Yeah, that would be the, you know, and like Jamie Hunting, when he plays, he like leaves off a little this or that, you know, little, and then he puts a little lilt into it, and it's hard to even explain what he's doing, but you know what he's playing that is truly brilliant.
That's awesome.
Because his musical neuronal bundle is like 200 times normal. You know?
Yeah. So with all the things going on now that things are starting to open up and stuff, do you guys have any big tips on how to get back out to playing? I mean, I've been practicing the whole time, but I am so out of shape. I had one gig, I didn't remember how to pack my stuff as naturally as I remembered. I had to like really think about, oh, where's that stand? Okay, it's still there. But you guys, you guys are going probably back out on tour really soon. You got any things you guys are prepping or things like that?
I'm touring with Roger Daltrey from. We're starting rehearsals on August 16th, and we have a tour through September 12th. But that's my only tour. I'm working on a TV show, that, you know, based on my book, and we want to further that and probably turn into a podcast as well. So I'm working on a lot of different things, and composing. Awesome. And then I got this other. I won't even say it. It's about the rock music that it was like a side project, and it's turning into something. So,
hey man, that's cool.
I was playing that for Michael the other night, and
that's incredible.
It's definitely
I want to play on this music. He's like, oh well, we already have a drummer that's who played on the record. I'm like, oh.
Well, he was the guy who started the band, you know.
And that's it.
And he's a good friend of ours, and he's amazing.
Michael, you got to start your own band.
Well, we do.
You know, a lot of people have told me that. I mean, you know, one of these days when I'm in a place where I have the time and the money, I'm going to do an album with all of my favorite musicians, and I'm going to call it Mike Glazer and Friends, and I'm going to write the songs, and that's a dream of mine. And I think I'm little by little doing baby steps to achieve that goal someday.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Our friend Drake is doing that. You know, he didn't really think of himself as a songwriter, and now he's got a whole album. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I'm helping him produce this music.
That's amazing.
All these keyboardists, unbelievable keyboardists, play with Etta James and Al Green and all these people, just like Deep Purple. You know, he's an unbelievable keyboardist, and he plays with He plays
Sugar Ray Rayford.
Sugar Ray Rayford. You know.
That's right. He's the musical director, plays keyboards. So Drake is the fourth member of Top Cat. So it's Frank, myself, Jamie Hunting, who I mentioned earlier, and Drake. and we've all been friends for 30 plus years. And so when we had an opportunity to play music together, Frank had some originals, and we played a bunch of Zeppelin and a bunch of Bowie and a bunch of Stones, and we said, hey, let's play together, put something together. And whenever we're all of us in the same place at the same time, we play together, which is maybe a couple times a year, but hey, it's still fun.
It is.
We'll
always do that.
That's cool, man.
Well,
thank you guys.
In July.
Well, we have
thank you. Thanks for letting me come on and join you guys. I love you guys.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That was so cool that you came on. I've been grateful to have you guys as friends. Always so thankful to Michael for hooking me up with Creative Exchange and everybody who's associated with sweet people. This is an exciting thing. We're able to do this now. I like to call this my submarine. You know, I tell my wife I'm going down to the submarine because it's like I'm talking to people from all over the world right from here. It's kind of cool. If I had to say, you know, it's a time we've never had before, so I think it's only going to keep connecting people more.
I'd like to thank Sarthak and Sass, who are the creators of Creative Exchange, because Frank introduced me to them, and then I introduced you to them for me. So it's like a full circle thing in that sense as well. So it's just good energy coming back around.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, that's cool. And Frank, you know, good luck out there with the new stuff going on in the Strum Theory. That's really exciting, man. I think you're breaking down some serious walls. I never thought of it that way, and that's putting all the pieces together. Yeah. That's cool, man. And for taking off the cloak of mystery on what it's like to play in those bands, and that's amazing. So thank you for all that candid info.
It's all connected to what I'm talking about, though, you know. Because there is a chapter about my musical life in the book, and I make it a connection to the science of music.
That's beautiful, awesome. Well, you guys have I guess West Coast time. It's early for you, right?
Yeah.
I still haven't had dinner, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Well, have a great dinner. I guess. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And anyone who was in there, I apologize. I didn't have questions from everyone because Creative Exchange is having its own thing. So I just asked a bunch of questions, and they're going to be able to repost this. Okay. So I'm sure people will reach out, and maybe we'll get to do this again sometime. Maybe even do it over some of that amazing Japanese food you were mentioning before.
Oh, man.
The eel. Boiled eel, right? Broiled eel. Okay. Sounds amazing. All right, guys. Well, thank you again, and thank you, Creative Exchange. I guess we'll see who's on next time, and thank you, guys.